country. Andreas Georgiou runs according to the Financial Times, one of London's top 5 grocers. It's named after him, Andreas. It's on Chelsea Green. He joins me on the line now. Start off, Andreas, if you would, just with your reaction to Dominic Raab's revelation this week that he didn't realise the Dover-Calais crossing was important, or how important it was, to be strictly fair.
I think, along with what you just said, it's astonishment and chilling and extremely worrying. And it's not just sort of me who's saying that. This morning in the markets, I spoke to one of the drivers from Very Fast, to my friend Simon at Side Salad. 90% of fruit and veg comes through Dover.
Seriously?
At this time of year. 90% at this time of year. And the connotations beyond the fact that stuff may be late. I mean, for example, now we would know within an hour of when a lorry's coming. So from my point of view, let's say I buy a pallet of fruit and veg a day from France or Italy, and I know within an hour it's going to be here. If it doesn't arrive on time, then my staff are twiddling my thumbs, my customers have nothing to buy.
The shelves are empty.
The shelves are in,
that bit of the shelf. I mean,
that bit of the shelf, because basically, we're always topping up.
Yes.
In essence, and what that basically means, we've got people doing nothing, which means not just me, but many other firms.
And this is where the word frictionless becomes crucial, because the way you can know within an hour or so when it's going to arrive outside is because there's no pauses in the passage, unless it's a road accident or something unpredictable. But if they introduce any forms of checks at Dover or at Calais, what happens?
It's a horrendous situation. Fruit and veg has got a maximum 7 days life, as we know.
Yeah.
Some only has 1 or 2 days life, let's say mushrooms, berries, etc.
Yes.
There is no insurance for this. It's bought from here. Everything is deliberately bought. They don't just drop it off and try and flog it. So, for example, big companies are buying 54, 60 pallets of fruit and veg from, let's say, southern Spain. It has to come through France to Dover. If it all goes off, they don't get any insurance back on it. It's money gone. And that could be a delay of 2 days, let's say, on some salad products. Worst ends up if it ends up on some sort of car park, for example, which has been mentioned, I know. You've got lorries with their engines on just to keep it cool, and the environmental damage, obviously, is another part of that. And it's okay, people, people say, I know Dominic Raab mentioned choice. Your choices will be different. Well, what choices? Farms are closing in England faster than they're opening. Branston's, after 25 years, this was their final harvest this year. They're a lovely farm in Epsom who grow some beautiful things, but they're closing because they can't get staff. There are no staff in the UK now from Eastern Europe. Then no one's coming. In fact, some of the Polish boys in the market are going home because companies like G's are talking about, we'll take our veg to the workforce.
Right.
This is real.
So now would be a good time to open a fruit farm in another European Union country, possibly one with lower labour costs or one with.
Well, I suppose you have to look at the economies of scale. But this is really happening. People are looking at this now. And it's not just sort of, shops like me. It's every shop, every kebab shop, every fried chicken shop, every Michelin-starred restaurant. So eventually what will happen is the fruit and veg will become a high-end commodity, which will be sold to the highest bidder and to the most expensive restaurants, and who's going to be sitting and eating in these restaurants?
See, we've forgotten about perishability in a lot of these debates, haven't we? Because we're having slightly academic conversations about technological solutions and frictionless trade, but you've just conjured up an image, forgive me, of a rotting plum.
Well, this is exactly what the case is. I mean, some of the markets in England used to be a dumping ground, as we'd say, from, the Dutchman would send a pallet here, send a pallet there, look, flog that, it's about the money. That's all gone. I mean, I'm looking at an invoice now from Italy. This is the beauty of frictionless trade.
Yes.
Good morning, as I agreed, I send you the pro forma. I send them the money, the stuff gets shipped. Remember. But also, there's a lot of people who are not sending to England now. And most of the organic stuff, for example, Germany would buy up anyway. So if they're growing in Poland, Germany's a lot closer than here, so their costs will be cheaper selling it to Germany
Yes.
send it to Spain and France rather than send it to the UK.
And I mean, we're focusing obviously on your field of expertise, which is going to be perishable foods, but of course this would apply to pharmaceutical goods as well, and to just-in-time manufacturing chains. So
I think we're all going to need a bit of pharmaceutical to
cure the headache.
If it wasn't real,
yes,
this is really, really real. You know, it's an unbelievable consequence that we have somebody in charge of all of this who did not know that most of our food comes through Dover. And you know what's going to happen? It's all going to go into the big cities. So all your rural areas, which now only rely on, let's say, their Metro, Tesco's and whatever, because they've taken over and all the small shops have gone, they're not going to have anything on the shelves because all the stuff, or whatever comes through, is going to go into London, Manchester, Birmingham, Liverpool, you know.
20 seconds, Andreas. What's the best case scenario right now, 5 months out?
Can't we just stop all this nonsense? Let's just stop it because it's silly and it's going to cost lives, it's going to cost people's health, it's going to cost people jobs. It's just got to stop. And Theresa May,
we've hit the music, Andreas. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, everybody else is going down here, so. So that's a diversion, and it must be for trucks or something. Yeah, so they can filter them off, I think. Yeah. Oh, it's a real chicane, this. Oh. Things that could be out catching criminals, but instead the direction in traffic. Now, well, yeah, all the refrigeration trucks have those engines ticking over, keep the plants going. The drivers don't just not get paid because they're parked up. They're still on the clock. They're still working. You know, this is all extra costs, and those things have got to get passed on to. The companies aren't going to absorb it. The companies are going to charge extra for it, and it's going to be the end user, isn't it? It's going to be us paying through the nose in the fucking shops.
So this is how things are going to be. This is the real cost of Brexit. All of these trucks aren't being checked. They're not being searched. The goods aren't being monitored. Tariffs aren't being applied. What's happening here is that they are simulating what's going to happen after Brexit, after we leave the EU. The way that the roads are going to be, the way that things are going to be stacked up, the way that things are going to be delayed. As you've just heard on the radio interview, 5 months ago, a fruit and veg owner was predicting this. He was saying that the roads and the highways will just become a car park. And as we're going down this road, we're still about 40 minutes away from the tunnel. We're still maybe 20 kilometres away. Things are just being stopped. You can see what's going to happen. Some of these trucks are going to have their engines running because they are refrigeration trucks. They have on them perishable goods. These sort of delays are going to degrade those perishable goods. Doesn't matter how cold they're kept, they're going to degrade. It's going to give them a shorter shelf life. And the fact of the matter is that each and every one of these drivers has to be paid his hourly rate. He has to be paid regardless of whether he's driving or whether he's stopped. If he's working, he's working. You don't stop work and take a break for 5 minutes and expect not to be paid, do you? Well, why would they? Why would they sit on the roadside like this for free? They're not going to. And the problem is that the refrigeration units on these trucks, the perishable goods on these trucks, the drivers, driving these trucks, it all has to be paid for. And the thing that's going to cause the biggest cost is the companies are going to raise their prices for delivery to the UK. Now again, the highway's been blocked off, traffic is being diverted, trucks are being separated off from cars and vans, and this is all causing a delay. The average driver in the UK earns anything from £22,500 to £40,000 a year. Okay, so let's say that that averages out at £10 an hour. A HGV driver that's stuck in 6 or 7 hours worth of traffic is going to be paid £60-70 for that time that he's in traffic, that time that he is stationary. If he's running a refrigeration unit, that truck needs to be running in order for that refrigeration plant to stay running, for the goods to stay cool, for them to stay fresh-ish. This is a cost that is going to be passed on to the consumer. It's going to be passed on to you and me. Now again, you can see the police are controlling everything. These police officers have to be paid. The people that lay out the cones have to be paid. The people that pick up the cones have to be paid. This is all a cost, and this is all because outside of the EU trade agreement, where there are no tariffs and there is freedom of movement and freedom of goods movement, then everything has to be checked and a tariff has to be applied. That means that we're going to need increased border control. It means that we're going to need extra people. All this has to be paid for, and who do you think is going to pay for this? It's not going to be the companies, it's not going to be the government, it's going to be us. A lettuce costing £1 today, tomorrow will cost you £3, because these costs have to be absorbed. And again, who pays for that truck to be sat there, you know, that van to be sat there, that police officer to be sat there? It's going to be us. I mean, let me put this in real simple terms. Diesel costs money. Drivers costs money. I mean, you can see on the left here, again, trucks are stacked up. You can see the traffic is slowing down again on this highway. This all has a cost, and the companies are not going to absorb the costs, because those costs are just going to rise. The companies are going to charge more because they're having to pay the drivers more, they're having to spend more on diesel, they're having to spend more because of the time that it's taking. We're not very far away from the tunnel at the moment, and as you can see on the right hand side here, the trucks are being stacked up. The point is that businesses are in business to make a profit. They are there to make money. They are not going to absorb the cost. They're not going to absorb the cost of the extra diesel it's costing. They're not going to absorb the cost of the extra wages that they're going to have to pay the drivers. Each and every one of these trucks has a cost to it, and as you can see, there is just miles and miles of trucks stacked up probably with the engines running.
Yeah.
Just waiting. There is talk of, oh, well, you can electronically scan these things. Well, yes, you can electronically scan these things, but how will that work? How will that work? How are you going to read the barcode of every item on one of these trucks? How are you going to read or know what's in there unless you go in there, unless you open the doors and unless you start tipping things out and scanning things individually? And that is what's going to take time, because every single item on one of these trucks is going to have a cost. Doesn't matter whether that cost is 10p or whether that cost is £10. The fact of the matter is that the costs are going to rise because the drivers have to be paid, the diesel has to be paid for, the maintenance has to be paid, the extra wages, it has to be paid. So these trucks are stuck in a 15-hour jam. If each driver's costing getting paid £10 per hour, that's an extra £150 per truckload, plus the diesel. And then there's the further delays, because if the engine is sat there running, they're classed as driving, they're on tachographs, which means that they have to take their regulator brakes and what have you, and it's all gonna cost more because of the tariffs. It doesn't matter if it's a Brussels sprout or a widescreen TV. It's going to have a cost. It's going to have an increased cost because of tariffs. And here we are, just entering the tunnel main thing. Yep, sure, there's no trucks, but then again, we're a passenger vehicle, we're a car, we're not freight. The freight lanes are stacked out, as we've seen at the roadside. This is the real cost of Brexit. This is the real cost of leaving the EU. Italy, France, Germany, Spain, whatever, they're not going to have hard borders because they're not going to want this. They're not going to want their trucks stacked up like this. They're not going to want their perishable goods sat in traffic and at the roadside. They're not going to want all the hassle that comes with leaving the EU. It's just not on. So this is the result of Brexit. Turning the highways into a car park, turning the ports into a car park, delays, extra costs, rising cost of living, perishable foods becoming a premium. It's absolute madness. And all because somebody sat in an office somewhere wants his country back because he objects to some Romanian or Bulgarian or German or whatever picking fruit, picking vegetables in a field, a job that he or she won't do anyway because they're too good to do that job.
That's VP. VP, yeah, well, I'm guessing. Passport.